You're watching the Eternal Tournament Series. Welcome back to the Losers Bracket of the Season 4 Invitational. We are live with Losers Bracket Round 2, and with everybody's lives on the line, we're going to be looking at DMKHS versus Unearthly. DMKHS is on Felon Tempo, and Unearthly, of course, as always, is on Rakano.
Yeah, and we're seeing another exciting slight variant on the Rakano plate deck for Unearthly, this one including 2 Jek the Bounty Hunters. This is the Rakano I want to see in the world. So yeah, it's looking like a pretty exciting matchup. Finest Hours, Oni Ronins, Torches, Outlaws, Champions of Glorious, all the standard Rakano good stuff versus the more aggressive Felon Tempo deck. This version a little different from the one we saw previously, running Impending Dooms instead of Unstable Forms.
Yeah, Impending Dooms, Cabal Countess, another card we didn't see, and Wisdom of the Elders. It's also notably only playing Twilight Raptor as its one drop of choice, while the other version that we saw was playing the Blood Beetles for a little bit more aggressive. So this one, a little bit more on the tempo than on the hyper aggro plan, but we'll have to see how it works out.
Yeah, you're using Wisdom of the Elders to generate card advantage. You're no longer using Whispering Wind to pull cards from your deck and shape your deck, so you're reliant on good draws to get your tempo across, but you do have a lot of value in the deck that the other list might not have.
And a very interesting transformational sideboard that we may not get to see here, but 3 copies of Recurring Nightmare and 3 copies of Thunderstrike Dragon do give him options to go a little bit taller against the control decks.
Yeah, Thunderstrike Dragon can be a very solid card if you're playing control matchups, especially against single-target Felon decks, which tend to really have problems dealing with so many Thunderstrikes. Recurring Nightmare can also be a really nice card if your opponent has poor answers to it. I think that Unearthly should be just fine with his standard 4 Torches, his Sylvan Familiars, and Valkyrie Enforcers. All of those cards tend to match up decently well against a Recurring Nightmare.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see how it works in-game as the players are now heading into the match. DMK with a reasonably aggressive hand here, but he is on the draw and cannot play his Twilight Raptor on turn 1. Unearthly with quite a miss.
Yeah, he floods into Flood. He's got the Deep Forge plate here, which is pretty good for him. I think having 4 power in general is not bad here, since he's looking for something to put that Deep Forge plate on, and just having a Deep Forge plate against the Felon deck should be very, very beneficial to him. But he's looking for a better hand than he's got at the moment. He needs units to play down, he needs other threats, and just managing the first threat that DMK lays down with a torch is not going to be enough. He's going to need to find something else.
Well, DMK sabotages, so that plate may not be long for the world, or potentially he may have no torch to answer the units in DMK's hand. Just depends on whether he values taking the weapon or the torch. I think the torch is the one to go, and it is, just because of the sheer volume of units that DMK is going to be putting out.
Yeah, DMK can always try and pick up the Deep Forge plate later with another sabotage, but the torch is a threat right now, and DMK now has a basic plan where he can just kill the opponent's unit and or kill the opponent's stuff and basically just run in without getting removed.
Interesting that he plays that unit first.
Yeah, Unearthly ends the turn without playing Champion of Glory. He's going to wait until he has the Finest Hour before he plays it, just so that he has better defense against, I guess, more the Suffocates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he doesn't know what's in DMK's hands, so looking to get some value there. DMK is just going to dump his hand on the board and then have a Midnight Gale to follow up, though. So Unearthly can attack pretty safely with that Champion of Glory, which makes it one of the better draws that he could have had. And he's on plate in 2 turns.
Yeah, that looks pretty solid. We see the Seek Power into Finest Hour. There's a lot of setups for Unearthly, and overall, it's just looking like he's got not really very much on board to present with, but I think the Finest Hour could be fairly solid. Deep Forge plate here, still a thing that Unearthly wants to play, but he's got to be worried about whatever it is that DMKHS is holding in his hand.
So the good thing about Champion of Glory, the Champion of Glory is a really annoying card for Felon to remove. DMK has 2 Death Strikes that can take care of it once it's powered up, but other than that, he's got nothing. Since it can't be killed by
Yep.
Annihilate, and DMK is running the full 4 copies of Annihilate.
Yeah, so if he can Deep Forge Plate here, it's a risk, but it's a pretty good one. He'll be able to get rid of the Midnight Gale with Jack next turn. So he basically just needs the 8/8 into the second Deep Forge Plate. Just going to push as much damage as possible. Midnight Gale does create problems for him, but he's looking at so much damage here that it's actually going to be fairly hard for DMK to come out ahead.
Plates on plates. The second one going to be very good. He can torch if he wants to, if he thinks it's really a problem, but I think you just plate slam.
Yeah, if you plate slam here, you don't get to Finest Hour, which is a bit of a problem. I think that there are some reasons to do either play. Overall, if he just attacks with plate, then he gets 8 damage, 9, 10 damage to face. And that means he's dead next turn unless he finds the right answers. But he should just be killing his opponent by that point. So unless DMK is secretly holding on to a Death Strike, I think either way, Unearthly is probably in the clear.
So if DMK doesn't block, Unearthly can go for the lethal plan because Finest Hour plus Torch will be lethal, but Backlash from DMK will stop that.
Yeah, Unearthly can throw the Finest Hour here to push a little bit more damage. We see a pause, and that means that the Backlash is in fact there.
So he's probably not going to go for the Torch.
Yeah, this is a good decision from Unearthly, though. The way that he does this actually sets up really well, since if there is a backlash, DMK has to backlash this turn, because Unearthly's holding on to the Torch. So now DMK doesn't have outs. If he pulls the Death Strike, then Unearthly can just hold on to this Torch and just hold it back.
And he's 2 damage off of lethal.
Yeah, he does throw it out. The backlash happens. I guess that's a reasonable play since the lifesteal off of Midnight Gale is going to happen. So there's you can either save it for the Midnight Gale or you can just throw it at face. Either way, looks like Unearthly's in pretty solid control of this game as long as Death Strike doesn't happen. And if Death Strike happens, he just loses.
Well, DMK drew a power, which wasn't enough, and is now counting out his damage. He can attack in for 10, but not 12, and holding back his blockers isn't going to end up being that effective either because of this instigator that's always the issue. Killing players on both sides of the board.
Could swing in with just the Midnight Gale
Likes to attack
or
with
just
damage.
I don't think I like just the Midnight Gale plan, but I think I like 6 damage here plus your blockers, because that gives him a little bit more of a defense against, and means that he is able to hold out a little bit better against the more aggressive deck. Unearthly with 8 damage here plus quite a bit more. He gets
I think
the
this
plate
puts him to 1.
13,
I think he lives. He takes it. DMK takes it over Unearthly.
Let's see here, that's 4, 10, or 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. 4 damage minus 3. I believe you're right. Yeah, he's at 1, and he lives for the turn.
And he gets to attack back for lethal. So DMK with that 2 Twilight Raptor attack plus the Midnight Gale got just enough life to survive, where just 1 or holding all of them back wouldn't have worked, and is able to survive the second plate and take down Unearthly in the also critical first game of the aggro matchup.
Yeah, looking pretty solid. So Unearthly's got to see what he can do to recover from that situation and help himself out against the Felm Tempo deck. He's already got some sideboards prepped, so he'll just examine those and see what it is that he's looking for. In the matchup, Unearthly's options include Soulfire Drake, Rebuke, Paladin Oathbook. He can run his own Ruins, which aren't particularly useful against Felm Tempo. He can run Protects if he feels like it, and Vanquish is also a target that can hit Midnight Gale, but none of those seem like particularly appealing options over Rebuke or something that just increases his aggression.
I think Protect is probably likely to come in. There's just so much removal coming out of the DMK deck that landing something is probably going to be pretty useful. DMK has cards of his own going up to the full force sabotages. Backlashes, I think we may see shaved a little bit, as while it did save DMK there and set up lethal, it's not always going to be that clear cut, and you won't always have power up for it. The extra Vera's favor and potentially the death strikes might coming in. Depending on how much insurance policy, you've got a bit of a back and forth there. Unearthly can bring in the protects, but then you've got death strikes. So which one are you really going to do?
Yeah, Protect definitely does a lot of work for Unearthly here. In addition to saving his units, it also saves his weapons and very occasionally his spells when he casts it against the sabotages that are just all over DMK's list. So I think that overall, that is probably the most likely side in, and we'll see exactly what it ends up being played.
So do
Swift
you think that DMK is going to be able to take another aggressive start there and just put Unearthly so far on the back foot? Because that was a really awkward draw from Rakano plate, and even then, Unearthly was just a single point away from lethal.
Yep, he took the game pretty well there. Unearthly is going for a style of deck where he is very much guaranteed to play out all of his units. Like, he's running enough power to really support this Rakano style. I believe is it 30 power in his deck? 31?
31, I think, is the total,
Yeah,
including like
31.
Seek powers and things.
Lots of different sources. He's able to get into that mid-range style, so he's definitely capable of continuing to play, even on the more awkward hands. But that was a situation where Unearthly had most of the aggression that he needed, and managed to get a lot of value out of that Deep Forge plate and overall setup. I think a lot of this game is going to come down to whether or not DMK gets to play down those Midnight Gales and keep them alive. They're very vulnerable to several of Unearthly's spells, but Unearthly is not typically going to be interacting with the deck as much. On Unearthly's side, he really wants to get those plates down. He wants to get them down on targets that don't get death struck. And if that happens, he's just golden. So I think that there is potential for either player to really get an advantage, but it's really going to depend on whose removal lines up with what units.
Well, the game is in progress. We are in game 2 of DMK versus Unearthly, and a Sabotage has already taken down a Vanquish. DMK is a bit of an awkward hand. He's got no units before Impending Doom, but at least he did pull a Vanquish that would have hit it.
To play down the Champion of Glory turn 2, always the thing you want to see. If he sees a Suffocate, then that's a little bit rougher. Valkyrie Enforcer certainly helps out with some of DMK's early threats, including the standard 2-3 Death Touch type situation. And I think that Soulfire Drake will be a very powerful card in this list. This should be a really solid, even if it gets annihilated. It's just hard for DMK to deal with, and giving Unearthly's units charge and flying can be very, very effective here.
Yeah, DMK elects to hold on to the Vera's favor, choosing not to use it for power. And Unearthly does just play the Champion of Glory, but this puts him into a little bit unhappy of a situation in that he can't use that Diplomatic Seal that he has in hand to get Fire Influence, which would guarantee that he would have the Soulfire Drake on 5. He's going to need to draw an extra Fire Influence now.
He's got one in Rakano Banner and Fire Sigil, so he should make triple red pretty easy. Yeah, it looks like he's mostly set up. He just needs to find some weapons to equip, and it'd be good if he could answer DMK's threats.
Mm-hmm.
DMK has to use the Vara's favor here for power, and that means that the Feln Tempo deck is not generating tempo. He's now relegated to the role of control against Unearthly, and that's not a good position to be in at the moment with the Soulfire Drake lurking in hand, and DMK, holding on to an Impending Doom.
So Unearthly's got a Rune Hammered up, or a Hammer of Mighted up Champion of Glory, which means that I hope the DMK brought in those Death Strikes, because that's really his only answer to it. He's got these Annihilates that don't hit it. He's got a Permafrost that can't hit it. So his whole hand is just dead to the 6/6. And he's very quickly going to die to it, especially with the Soulfire Drake potentially coming down here.
Yeah, DMK choosing to be aggressive with the Impending Doom. That leaves him a blocker up against the Valkyrie Enforcer. But with Soulfire Drake coming down, I don't know if there's a particularly good option for DMK. Unearthly probably throws Soulfire Drake here. He can also throw the big Valkyrie Enforcer and just attack in for a guaranteed 9. Solid for him.
Yeah, chooses to go for the Enforcer, and there's a lot of Suffocate or Annihilates here. But he can't have 3, so he either needs to Permafrost one of these units if he wants to hold up an Annihilate for the Soulfire Drake that we know about that he doesn't, or he's just going to die to it if he attacks in, which he does.
Yeah, DMK is also slowly bleeding out from the impending doom, so if that lives for even one more turn, that's not really going to help him. He's just at 5.
Well, he does go for the Permafrost line, so this sets him up with the best chance, because if Unearthly draws nothing and the Soulfire Drake gets taken out, he can then draw, he can chump, draw Death Strike, or just another chump blocker, and maybe be able to race with the impending doom.
Drake coming in for lethal here. If there's an Annihilate, then he's in slightly better position. But overall, it's not looking good for him.
Yeah, and doesn't draw it, and now needs to leave the impending doom back. So Unearthly's probably going to take this game.
Yeah, there's not a lot going on for DMK at the moment. The impending dooms are more help than harm at this point. They don't really defend very well against the 6/6. He needs Death Strikes for the Champion of Glory. That card is just the big answer to the Feln deck, and it's coming in now for potential lethal.
And there's interesting that he elects to do it that way. Sabotage comes. Sorry, go ahead.
Funnily enough, Unearthly kind of has a weird play here where he could have not attacked and thrown a torch at DMK's face at the point where the sabotage happens. And at that point, he has lethal at the end of DMK's turn as opposed to at the end of his turn. But I think that overall, either way, turns out he takes this game, and we will have one more round.
Yeah, we'll be back at 1-1. And you need to open up DMK's in-game preview.
It's looking like a pretty interesting setup. We can see that we have a lot of different optional sideboard choices. So
looks like there the
good.
Death Strikes would have been really important, since we can see that in both games it's really the Champions of Glory that are going to get them. So I hope that those are in here. This little bit slower style of Feln Tempo deck really seems to be struggling in the mid game, as you know, Rakano just has access to all these really cheap cards like Protect and Finest Hour that makes cards like Suffocate less effective, and Annihilate is missing more cards than you'd expect out of a Rakano deck. And just leaving even one unit alive is causing problems for him down the line.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty rough either way.
So, of course, the match isn't over, and there's plenty of potential for DMK to come out with an aggressive start and sort of put Unearthly on the back foot. But it feels like that's what he needs to do in this matchup. It doesn't feel like he's able to sort of absorb the Rakano aggression particularly well. Well, we're going down into the third match, so we will see how that goes. And who got the number 1? Unearthly got the number 1, and he starts out with Oni Ronin, so a very fast start there. Suffocate potentially coming down here to stem the bleeding a bit. So a reasonable aggressive start from both players, but that Suffocate is no longer hitting a Champion of Glory, and that could be a problem.
Yeah, we have Argenport Instigator as a potential 2-drop. Unearthly's looking at a lot of different aggressive units in his opening hand. I think this tends to work out okay for DMK, but if he doesn't have answers to that Champion of Glory, that's still the biggest threat in Unearthly's pile.
I think here you play the Instigator just to set up the Midnight Gale. I think you really need to get that banner going. The alternative, basically, I think that the Midnight Gale is important enough in this matchup that you really want to get it going. And letting the 2/2 live isn't the biggest deal. Sabotage actually misses here, as Unearthly only has units in hand. which means that not the best.
Yeah, it's not amazing. Midnight Gale is DMK's big premier card here. If he can get it down without a torch coming on it, then that's really what he wants. But at the moment, he doesn't have anything to play down that's really going to bait that torch effectively. So Gale will probably be going down immediately.
Yeah. And I think that just missing the sabotage is going to have huge problems for him, as if he played the Instigator. Well, that's one of the juiciest torch targets in the game, and now the Rakano deck is just, it's moving full swing. And DMK draws a Wisdom, which, I mean, it's card draw, but when you're facing down 7 points of damage a turn, it's not really where you want to be. So it looks like Unearthly's going to be taking this one in short order.
Yep, looks like he's pushing a lot of damage here. Cabal Countess allows him to block the 2-1, and then Annihilate gets rid of the 2-2. But those are out of order, so he's not in great shape here. Can at least defend himself against the Rakano Outlaw this turn by playing Annihilate. And yeah, that's almost stable
the
board.
double removal spells is nearly good enough, because next turn the Death Strike comes down, and then you're just taking 2.
Yeah, 2 per turn, plus he's getting a little bit of pressure. Impending Doom is also a really good card to present at this point, since he knows that there aren't that many more Torches or Vanquishes in Unearthly's hand. He could play Impending Doom here for the tempo.
I think that's
the
worse
problem
than
is
holding
that
up Death
Impending Doom
Strike.
does
Yeah.
cost him in general. Yeah.
And if they have Vanquish, you just die, essentially. You go down to 1.
In this game, though, and I think that Impending Doom is kind of it.
Higher risk, higher reward.
Yep, it's not great either way. He's taking damage from the Impending Doom, but Unearthly is stalled out this turn, and so now DMK can be a little bit more aggressive if he feels like it.
So
we
chooses
see
to attack with just the 3/3. Looks like
swinging for 3 here is not awful. Impending Doom is slowly bleeding him down, so he's just in a tough situation. Impending Doom does come with its drawbacks. It's not great in these particular matchups, just because of like how much you take as a result of just sitting still. And Unearthly draws the Deep Forge Plate, but putting it on anything just means a Death Strike. So I'm not sure if there's a good option for him there.
Unearthly's 31 power comes back to bite him as he floods out, and he's actually, since he was sitting on 6 or on 4 for that whole time, if he drew his namesake card Jack, which admittedly may not be in his deck list anymore, he could not have casted it. So the Deep Forge Plate is here, but as we know, so is the Death Strike. So Unearthly's put himself in, or is put in, a bit of a conundrum.
Yeah, he can play the Deep Forge Plate here on either unit. The play that he's probably considering here is on the 3/3. Obviously, a Death Strike there is just devastating. But if he suspects that DMK is holding on to Annihilates instead of Death Strikes, then it's just better to play it on the Overseer, get the Death Strike out of his hand, and try and pull something better later. I don't think that Unearthly has good options either way. He doesn't have a way to defend against this Impending Doom attacking in. So he really just needs to figure out something to do.
No, his 3 power draws in a row have really left him a little bit in the lurch. So he's trying to figure out, does he play around Annihilate? Does he play around Death Strike? Is Suffocate a card? Just trying to figure out what DMK is least likely to have, and unfortunately for him, it is the unconditional Death Strike.
Yeah, DMK has access to everything. There's no smart play here. If he does nothing, then DMK just drops like a Ball Countess and still has Death Strike next turn.
Yeah.
Like, DMK is efficiently using his power both of these turns, which means that he's actually in a pretty commanding position. At this point, Unearthly's best option is to try and draw into a Torch, because there's a chance that he doesn't die before Impending Doom bleeds DMK down to 3.
Just suicide attack with both? This is just going to get Death Strike. So this was the most likely of the lines that happened, and Death Strike's going to take care of that.
Yep, and that knocks DMK down for 1. Unearthly basically needs to stall here and hope that the Impending Doom gets him low enough.
Do you block here? Looks like
I
no.
can draw a torch and perhaps win that way. He can also potentially get this game in a couple of other fashions. I think if he had blocked there, he would be in slightly better position, but neither way looks particularly good for him, and even a torch doesn't save him here.
He does have Soulfire Drake, which buys him a turn. If he draws it, I still have not seen what Unearthly has drawn. He drew Protect. All right, so that's not going to win him the game.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to get dropped out of the loser's bracket here. Very close set of games, but DMK has it. He gets to Sabotage here. He'll see the Protect. And from there, it seems like an all-in attack is the best option.
Well, the Protect will probably block the Sabotage, but the Ace base is going to get pressed, and Unearthly will be unfortunately defeated by DMK's Felon Tempo deck.
Yeah, tempo versus tempo. Both players played their hearts out, and I think that overall it was a really close set of games.
Just waiting on the formalities here.
Yeah, we have 4, 5 plus 3 in. Argent Instigator adds an extra point, but that's not going to happen because Unearthly takes lethal. So there goes the victory, and Unearthly is now out of the ETS. We will be seeing DMK advancing up the losers bracket.
Yeah, and what a story it is for him. We've got two Felon Tempo decks, and both of them are doing relatively well. We saw both of them win on stream. DMK won, I believe, the last weekly tournament in order to qualify here. So this is his second major event that he's showing up to. I think that's the correct storyline. So congratulations to him. He's making a pretty good showing, taking down, I think, one of the favorites. After all, Unearthly has had a very strong season. And beating him here is no joke.
It's no easy feat to take down Unearthly. He's definitely sort of the challenge round. If you haven't prepared your deck effectively against aggro and you run into Unearthly, you're going to know. So that is the end of Unearthly's run, and we'll be seeing a little bit less aggro in the bracket as a result, but Felon Tempo is taking it forward.
So losers bracket round 2 is drawing to a close. Just 2 more matchups to go. So we're going to take another look back at the top 8 predictions as we see players are starting to fall left and right. Unearthly, of course, was one of the ones that everybody had on their lists, and we just saw him defeated here. Tony G was defeated in the losers bracket round 1 to Thundershot, knocking off one of Rekenner and Lights Out Ace's predictions. And as we saw in losers bracket round 1, Sir Rhino, who everybody had, defeated Toth, who Lights Out Ace had. So Lights Out Ace down 3, Unearthly or Rekenner also down 3, as Ski J was defeated by the newcomer Docta, who's playing in his second tournament after winning the last chance qualifier to come here today. And I lost Paradox to Levistraw, also in losers bracket round 1. So I'm only down 2, which sort of puts me in the lead here, but it's still a pretty big ask. Maybe next time is currently battling it out against Bradykin in losers bracket round 2. So I may be down 3 as well by the end of this round.
Yeah, well, looks like a pretty decent setup overall. Child Roland doing very well here. We've got that 2-0 performance, so we will be seeing if he can advance any further.
Moving now to the team. Moving down to the team performance lists, VPX may have brought in the first members, but unfortunately, they're actually down to the fewest members. Unearthly, we just saw getting knocked out there. Shed, Toth, and Ilya K all fell in losers bracket round 1, and I just heard from my producer that Manus took down Thundershot in losers bracket round 2, which leaves Illunex, who's in winner's side at 2-0, as the only remaining member of their team. So he's going to be getting all of their energy and support from there, to be sure. Team Elder Titans is doing a little bit better. Chalice, despite some grumbling, is actually winning games. Sarius and David are both 2-0 up in winner's side. Manus is 2-1, having just defeated Thundershot, and Moosh is 1-2, but still alive, or No, Moosh was defeated by Sir Rhino this round, excuse me. So Moosh is down. Looking over at Team SPG, Callum Deer was eliminated 1-2, as was Paradox, who was neglected to be put on this sheet in the pregame, but we got him back in there. Bradykin is still fighting it out. Hythar survived, defeating. Oh, yeah, you're gonna have to say this one for me.
Oh, is it? Oh goodness, I'm not sure where it's at. What name? I don't think I have it in front of me, aReNGee.
Come on, I'm scrolling up. Anyway, he defeated his opponent in losers bracket round 2. Apologies. And Child Roland is sitting pretty at 2-0 in the upper bracket. Team BS, that's Baboon Squad, of course. Tony G was eliminated 0-2, but Tiger HC is sitting pretty 2-0, and maybe next time still fighting against. No, actually, he has been defeated by Bradykin in the lower bracket. So Team BS down to just Tiger HC. They'll be cheering on him as well, and that does mean that I lose one of my top 8 predictions. Bradykin moves on to losers bracket round 3.
Well, a lot of good games we've seen so far, and I'm sure a lot of good games coming up soon.
Yeah, so just pulling up the bracket quickly, Doctor continues his reign, defeating Quincy 2-1. Hythar defeats his opponent. Flash takes down Tatsumaki 2-0. So Tatsumaki is out of the tournament. Manus takes down Thundershot. Levistra takes down Calendir. Bradykin moves on. Fan favorite Sir Rhino moves on, and we just saw DMK defeated Unearthly. We'll be moving to losers bracket round 3 as our next match, leaving winners just for a little bit. And we'll be back after a short break.
Thanks so much, folks. See you soon.